You're a new player and have no idea how to choose your gear. How would you go about even doing that in the first place? Roll it. Welcome back and Kalos Sirsate, everyone. That's Greek in case you didn't know. One question I see most newer players asking me is, do you hear the voices too? I do, and they keep telling me to press the red button for some weird reason.
I'm Groot.
That's right.
I'm Groot.
No! No, that's the button that will kill everyone!
Jokes aside, new players usually don't know how to choose their gear, why to choose one specific gear piece over another, and what do they need to look at to know what gear choices will benefit them the most. Because what's good for me might not be good for you, and vice versa. And there are various reasons for this. For example, me and you could be playing different classes, which will impact your gear needs differently on some occasions. What also plays a huge role in your gear choices is time. The time you have to spare greatly impacts your choices in game. Your class role also determines the gear choices you make, since those choices will help you tank better, heal more, or damage more, or die more if you are into free tickets to the campfire. I mean, deaths are part of the leaderboard, right? You could be racing your buddies to see who dies the most. I'm not judging. It could be a thing. People are weird. And trust me, being Greek, we invented weird. Choris plaka. Another huge factor in gear choice is determined by your in-game goals. It is totally within the realm of possibility that your only goal is to hang out in Protector's Enclave, or just chat politics, flat earth, or when your next colonoscopy appointment is. I mean, that's way too much information, but you see where I'm going with this. There are people who don't do anything but chat and socialize, which means the gear doesn't matter as much for them as it will for you, but fashion might. Your goal could be to be the best tank, DPSer, or healer in the game. Or your thing could be just questing and doing heroics. So for example, if you love farming the scab in Avernus or any area in Avernus, then your gear choices should reflect that by being gear that deals more damage to demons, fiends, or devils. You know, to optimize your efficiency in said areas. Or your goal could be to hang out with friends and do all the mini dungeons, which means your gear choices can and will be lower grade. You know, be not as strong, but good enough to complete what you and your group set out to do and achieve. Not everybody wants to do endgame content. People consciously make that choice and don't even bother with endgame gear, period. And trust me, there are more people like that than you even realize. Also, your item level will play a role into what gear you need, since item level actually does mean something now. Different item levels have different requirements, and couple that with your class and resources and time and goals, then it can seem pretty intimidating at first glance. And right now, as you are listening to this mouth breather and window licker, you might feel even more confused than before you clicked on this video. I know, it's a gift, but I will unconfuse you. Because getting confused is very confusing, and if I confuse you even more, then we will just be confused at what confused us in the first place. So let's not confuse things even more. It's just confusing. I will try and make it easier for you to decide what items are better for you. Literally help you understand your choices better, and basically help you know how to make that choice all on your own. So the biggest factor besides what your in-game game style is or your goals is capping stats. So let me zoom in for you and explain. You see here where it says main stats? This is where all the magic happens when it comes to capping your stats. It is pretty easy to understand compared to what it used to be. It stares you right in the face, and it's the main thing you have to focus on to make your gear choices. And by switching gear, enchants, artifacts, boons, companions, or anything else that gives you stats in general will change these percentages. That's the basics of it. Then you have these two columns, your rating and your total ratings. The rating column basically is based on your item level. So for example, if you have 40,000 item level and any of your ratings are above that, so let's say at 41,000, then that extra 1,000 to your ratings have zero effect on your damage. It's basically wasted stats. So having more than your item level will not benefit you at all. The left rating column is in essence all your flat stats. You know, from gear, enchantments, insignias, and so on, which caps at 50% efficiency. So at 40,000 item level, if you have 40,000 power, your power is literally at max efficiency, which is 50%. Every 1,000 stats that you are below your item level, you will lose 1% of your total ratings / efficiency. I think that makes it slightly more clear. So if you're at 39,000, you lose 1%. 38, you lose 2. 37, you lose 3. So on and so forth. Now let's look at the right column. The right column, which I highlighted for you, is your total ratings. To add to these ratings, you need to add percentage-based items or percentage-based procs. For example, companion percentages, bonuses, racial bonuses, consumables like foods all add to your total rating. So do ability scores and ability stats. The highest ratings you can get is 90%, and that is your goal when choosing your gear. You basically switch gear, companions, insignias, or whatever else you have to try and balance your stats out based on your priorities as a DPSer and those percentages. So as a DPSer, in case you don't know, your stat priorities are power, combat advantage, crit strike, and crit severity, and then accuracy, in that order. So if you have gears that gives you certain percentage stats, depending on what the requirements that specific gear requires for those percentages to actually proc, you won't see them in your stats until you are in combat. So you can use a test dummy to see how high your stats will go with that specific gear when they proc. In general, what you want to be looking at as a new player is the right column. The max percentage you can have, like I said, is 90%. And they won't be consistently in 90%, except for maybe one or two stats. Most, if not all, the percentages fluctuate consistently and constantly during battle, depending on what requirements or procs are being met. The percentages constantly change depending on your item level as well. So balancing your stats is not just a one and done or a wham bam thank you ma'am kind of deal. As soon as you lower or raise your item level, you might need to rebalance a few stats again. It's just the way the system works. So the total of the percentage column and ratings column combine to give you the max total of 90%. Unfortunately, capping stats will be a constant battle, especially for newer players who, the stronger they become, the more they will need to balance their stats. So now, let me make this slightly easier in a nutshell if again you didn't understand. Since as a DPS class you know now, your main stat priorities are power, combat advantage, crit strike, crit severity, and accuracy, then all your choices have to be based only on those stats. Same goes for tanks with their main stats and healers depending on their stats too. So for example, if you capped power, which is the easiest to cap, then your next priority should be combat advantage, and so on and so forth. So it isn't difficult to know what you need to do. There's just many ways to do it. That's what confuses newer players. It's not just enchantments and gear. It's ability stats that add to your percentages. It's insignias, it's forte, it's mounts, it's companions, it's companion gear, it's boons, and everything else that exists in game with stats attached to them. What your item level is doesn't matter when it comes to the goal of capping stats. You're going to have to cap your stats regardless or get them close to it anyways. Your main goal is capping stats, or get as close to capping stats as possible in battle. So if today your stats are capped at 75% in battle, tomorrow they might be at 76, and a week later they might be at 78. It's just the way it goes. It's a progression. New players, mid-games, and end-game all need to get as close as possible to capping stats to be more efficient in their specific roles. So basically what you can do is grab your character, head to a target dummy, pop all your consumable buffs, and attack. And keep an eye on your stats. Then make your choice depending on what stats you are missing. I'd start with companions since all the companion bonuses are all percentage based. Once you get those done, you can try and min-max and squeeze out even more stats. Or you could do the opposite. Focus on gear, see where you're at, and then get companions upgraded because they do take longer because of the cost, getting them to mythic and all that razzmatazz. Once you get those done or close to done, you can try and min-max and squeeze out even more stats through ability scores, gears with percentage equip bonuses on it, and so on. All you need to remember is the only thing that really matters is the right side percentage and what it looks like when you're in battle. So if you're having trouble deciding what companions, mount collars, or whatever else to use, I have videos about various topics regarding gear and all sorts of stuff. You can go check them out. Also, damage gear is probably better damage-wise, but only if you are able to balance your stats as close as possible to 90%. Personally, I think anything above 80% in battle is decent enough so you can be competitive or at least useful in groups. Once you manage to have close to capped stats and use percentage damage gear all at once, then that should be your go-to. Since damage percentage gear will give you more damage overall than stats-based gear will. But like I said, that also depends on how close you are to capping your stats. So the bottom line is, no need to look at all these numbers and freak the fuck out. All you need to know is the right side ratings has a percentage that caps 90%. Your goal is to get all your main stats you need as close as possible to that 90% while in battle and while fully buffed with foods, elixirs, etc. Once you look at it this way, it makes it much easier to decide. Test it yourself. Go to a target dummy and add gear that adds stats. Then look at your ratings in battle. Then add percentage stats from a companion, for example. Then compare the ratings again in battle. Then you will understand what I'm talking about. It's much easier than it looks to understand. The hard part is not understanding it. The hard part is actually having the resources to do it. But that's a whole different story altogether. So I hope this kind of helps you understand how to pick your gear. It's not that difficult. The difficult part is getting the gear. Understanding it is not. Swap gear in and out, Choose gear that has percentages of the stats that you might need, like Sky Blazer or whatever else. Then go and battle to our target dummy and see how high it goes. Always remember to use your buff food. That's basically it. If you still have questions even after this video, feel free to ask in the comments below. That's as easy as I can make it while making it complicated, because I'm Greek and nothing is easy with Greeks. Greeks are malakias. If you're Greek, you understand. And you might understand even if you forget. I'm rambling. All right. Galactic here. Peace out. Stay safe.